Jake and Ella Thompson were the epitome of a well-matched couple in the quiet suburb of Brookfield. Jake, at 39, was a successful architect with a reputation for meticulous design and an unwavering dedication to his clients. His chiseled features and salt and pepper hair made him the quintessential picture of suburban success. Ella, 3 years younger, at 36, was a talented graphic designer who had put her career on hold to raise their daughter, Lily, who was 6. With her bright blue eyes and sun-kissed blonde hair, Ella was often seen as the charming and elegant counterpart to Jake's steady demeanor. Their house on Elm Street was a showcase of their combined efforts, tastefully decorated with a blend of modern and traditional elements. It was in this house that they had built their life together, a life filled with routine and occasional bursts of social engagement. The annual summer BBQ party was one such engagement. Hosted by the Brookfield Homeowners Association, the event was a highlight of the season. It was an opportunity for the community to mingle, share stories, and, for many, to catch up on the latest gossip. The event was always attended by the most influential families in the neighborhood, including the Thompsons. This year, Ella was particularly excited about the BBQ. She had been looking forward to it all week, eager to catch up with friends and enjoy the warm summer night. Jake, who had been swamped with work, promised to drop her off at the party and return later. Ella was perfectly content with this arrangement, eager for a night of relaxation and socializing. As Jake drove up to the grand house hosting the event, he noticed the strings of fairy lights that had been draped across the backyard, casting a warm and inviting glow. The scent of grilled meat and the laughter of children filled the air. Jake kissed Ella goodbye, gave her a reassuring smile, and promised he'd be back to pick her up when he finished up some work at the office. Ella entered the party with a cheerful wave and immediately got swept up in the festivities. Her friends, the Johnsons and the Parkers, greeted her with enthusiastic hugs. She mingled, catching up on the latest neighborhood gossip and enjoying the spread of food and drinks. As the night wore on, she indulged in a few glasses of wine, feeling the effects of alcohol loosen her normally reserved demeanor. The backyard was alive with activity. Children played tag near the swings, couples chatted around the fire pit, and the DJ played a selection of upbeat summer tunes. Ella, feeling buoyed by the atmosphere and the alcohol, began to wander, her social circle expanding as she met new faces and rekindled old acquaintances. One person who caught her attention was Daniel Martin, the HOA president. At 42, Daniel was known for his charismatic personality and his tendency to hover around the more affluent guests. He was a tall man with a commanding presence, his dark hair always perfectly styled. Despite his public persona as a serious and responsible leader, Daniel had a reputation for being somewhat of a ladies' man. As the evening progressed, Ella found herself drawn to Daniel's charm. He had always been flirty, but tonight he seemed particularly intent on making a connection with her. His compliments were more personal, his touch more lingering. At first, Ella was flattered. She enjoyed the attention, and the alcohol had dulled her usual self-restraint. By midnight, the party had reached its peak. Most of the guests had migrated towards the hot tub, eager for a late-night dip. Ella, having had a few more drinks, decided to join in. The hot tub was a popular feature at these parties, often serving as a social hub where people would let their guard down. Ella slipped into her swimsuit, not realizing how the combination of alcohol and the sultry atmosphere would affect her judgment. As she eased into the warm, bubbling water, she noticed Daniel was already there. He greeted her with a smirk that seemed more suggestive than friendly. Ella felt a thrill at the attention, the warmth of the water complementing the warmth of the alcohol in her veins. The conversation in the hot tub began innocently enough. Chatter about the party, light jokes, and friendly banter. But as the minutes ticked by, the atmosphere grew more charged. Daniel's touches became more frequent, his gaze more intense. Ella, feeling emboldened by the alcohol and the heat, began to reciprocate his advances. The conversation shifted to more intimate topics, and the line between friendly and flirtatious blurred. Before she knew it, Daniel was leaning in closer, his hand resting on her thigh. Ella felt a rush of excitement and a pang of guilt that was quickly drowned out by the effects of the alcohol. The warm water and Daniel's close proximity made her feel adventurous and reckless. In the haze of the night, she let herself be swept along, her inhibitions melting away. The hours passed, and the hot tub became a private sanctuary away from the rest of the party. Ella's mind was a swirl of emotions, the boundaries between right and wrong increasingly unclear. Daniel's whispered compliments and gentle touches felt intoxicating, and the reality of her actions seemed distant. Jake, meanwhile, was back at the office, finishing up some paperwork. He had been delayed longer than he anticipated and sent Ella a quick text to check if she was ready to leave. There was no response. He assumed she was having a good time and would be fine until he got there. By the time Jake finally wrapped up his work and made his way back to the party, Ella was long gone from his thoughts. He arrived to find the party winding down and the house emptying out. His mind was on finishing his tasks and heading home for a quiet night. The night was a blur for Ella, but as the first light of dawn began to creep into the sky, she realized she had lost track of time. Stumbling out of the hot tub, she managed to call a cab to take her home. Her head was pounding, and her body felt heavy with exhaustion. She didn't remember much of the ride or the moments leading up to it. As she arrived home, she found the house eerily quiet. Jake's car was gone, and the only sound was the soft whimpering of Lily, who had been left alone on the couch, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. Ella's heart sank as she approached her daughter, who pointed wordlessly at the smartphone lying on the coffee table. Ella picked up the phone and saw the notifications from the neighborhood group chat. The video had been shared widely, and her heart raced as she clicked on the clip. What she saw made her stomach churn. There she was in the hot tub with Daniel, the footage revealing far more than she had remembered or intended. The video captured their intimate and flirtatious behavior, a betrayal so blatant that it left no room for denial. Stunned and horrified, Ella could only stand there in shock, her mind racing as she tried to piece together what had happened and how to face the consequences of her actions. Ella Thompson's head pounded with a relentless throb as she stumbled into the house, her vision blurry from exhaustion and alcohol. The quiet of the early morning was a stark contrast to the lively chaos of the party she had left behind. Her daughter, Lily, was sitting on the couch, her tiny body curled up in a ball, her big eyes red and puffy from crying. The sight of her daughter alone in the house tore at Ella's heart. "Lily, sweetheart, what's wrong?" Ella asked softly, crouching beside her daughter. Lily's response was a soft, incoherent sob, her small hands clutching a well-loved stuffed bunny. Ella's concern grew as she saw the distress on Lily's face. "Where's Daddy?" Ella asked, her voice trembling. Lily only pointed towards the coffee table where Ella's phone lay, surrounded by unopened mail and a scattering of toys. Ella picked up her phone, noting the numerous notifications from the neighborhood group chat. Her fingers fumbled as she unlocked the device, the reality of her situation beginning to sink in. The video was impossible to ignore. With a growing sense of dread, she clicked on the message that contained the clip. The video played automatically, and Ella's face went pale as she watched the footage. It was a montage of her and Daniel Martin in the hot tub, their actions far more intimate than she remembered. The alcohol had made the night a blur, but the video made the reality crystal clear. The way Daniel's hands roamed over her body, the way she had responded, it was all there, a damning record of her betrayal. Ella's stomach churned as she struggled to suppress the wave of nausea. The guilt and shame were overwhelming. She had never imagined that a fun night at the BBQ could lead to such a disastrous outcome. The consequences of her actions were all too real, and she knew that facing Jake's anger would be inevitable. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a text message from Jake. It was a simple, yet piercing question. "Where are you?" Ella's hands shook as she typed back. "I'm home. I'm sorry. I'll explain everything when you get here." Minutes dragged into what felt like hours as Ella waited for Jake to return. She tried to comfort Lily, making the little girl a simple breakfast, though her heart wasn't in it. The silence in the house was deafening. Each creak of the floorboards, each ticking of the clock on the wall, seemed to amplify the tension that was building. When Jake finally arrived, he was visibly worn out from his long day at work, his face lined with concern. He was quick to notice the scene before him. Lily on the couch, Ella looking distraught, and the phone still lying on the coffee table. The sight was enough to send a pang of worry through him. "Ella, what's going on?" Jake asked, his voice a mix of frustration and concern as he walked into the living room. Ella's heart pounded as she saw the anger and confusion in his eyes. She opened her mouth to explain, but no words came out. Instead, she pointed silently towards the phone. Jake's gaze followed her gesture, and he picked up the phone, his eyes quickly zeroing in on the video. As he watched the footage, his face went from confusion to shock, and then to rage. The transformation was unsettling. The warm and composed Jake was now a man consumed by betrayal. "What is this, Ella?" Jake's voice was cold, each word laced with pain. Ella tried to speak, to explain, but her throat felt dry and tight. Her mind raced, searching for the right words to convey the complexity of her emotions, but all she could manage were incoherent stammers. I don't know what to say, Jake. I was drunk, and I didn't realize." Ella's voice faltered as she saw the look of disappointment in Jake's eyes. She had expected anger, but the depth of his hurt was something she hadn't anticipated. Jake's expression hardened. "You didn't realize? Ella, this isn't just a mistake. This is you." He stopped, struggling to find the right words. His anger was palpable, but it was the sense of betrayal that cut him deepest. "This is you being with another man, and you didn't even bother to tell me about it." The weight of Jake's words hit Ella like a physical blow. She wanted to defend herself, to explain that it was a moment of weakness, but she couldn't. The damage was done, and no amount of explanation could undo the hurt she had caused. Jake paced the room, his frustration evident. "I trusted you, Ella. We built a life together, and you've thrown it all away. Do you even realize what this means for us?" Ella tried to reach out, her voice trembling. "Jake, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. It was a mistake, a horrible, stupid mistake. Please just let me explain." Jake's anger was mixed with profound sadness. "I don't think there's much left to explain. I saw what happened. I saw how you acted. It's clear that this wasn't just a drunken lapse. It's something deeper." Ella's heart sank as Jake's words echoed through her mind. The implications were devastating. She had been unfaithful, and the video was an undeniable record of her betrayal. The trust that had once been the foundation of their relationship was now shattered. Jake's anger was not just about the infidelity, it was about the deception, the disregard for their relationship, and the impact it had on their family. Ella's mind raced as she tried to think of a way to make amends, but the reality was sinking in. The damage was done, and the consequences were unavoidable. Jake took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. "I need some time to think," he said finally. "I don't know what to say right now. I need space to figure out what to do next." Ella nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I'll give you all the space you need." As Jake left the room, Ella felt the crushing weight of her actions. The once vibrant house now seemed cold and empty. She glanced at Lily, who had fallen back asleep on the couch. Ella's heart ached as she thought about the impact this would have on her daughter. Ella sank onto the couch beside Lily, her mind a storm of regret and sorrow. She knew that repairing the damage done to her marriage would be an uphill battle, and the path ahead was uncertain. As the morning light streamed through the windows, Ella was left alone with her thoughts, facing the harsh reality of her actions and the uncertain future that lay ahead. The days following the revelation of Ella's betrayal were a whirlwind of tension, confrontation, and painful reflection. The once vibrant home of Jake and Ella Thompson was now a battlefield of silent accusations and unspoken hurt. The impact on their daughter Lily was also undeniable. The cheerful atmosphere of their family life had been replaced by a cold and somber environment. Jake's emotions were a storm of anger and betrayal, mixed with a deep sense of disillusionment. He felt betrayed not just by Ella's infidelity, but also by the way she had dismissed the sanctity of their relationship. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Ella's explanations and apologies seemed hollow and inadequate in light of the video evidence and the extent of her betrayal. Determined to find a way to channel his rage, Jake began to focus on the consequences for Daniel Martin. He had known Daniel for years through the Homeowners Association, and he had always suspected that Daniel had a questionable moral compass. The video had provided the final piece of evidence Jake needed. Daniel's actions were a direct attack on the trust that Jake had in his community and in his wife. Jake meticulously gathered evidence of Daniel's misconduct. He spoke with neighbors, dug into records, and even reached out to people who had been wronged by Daniel in the past. He discovered a pattern of unethical behavior, from dubious business dealings to questionable decisions made in his role as HOA president. Armed with this information, Jake compiled a comprehensive dossier. The turning point came when Jake decided to expose Daniel publicly. he approached a local journalist, one known for investigative reporting and community issues. With the journalist's help, Jake presented the evidence of Daniel's wrongdoing. The journalist was intrigued and agreed to cover the story, promising a detailed expose that would reveal the true nature of Daniel's actions. The news article was published, and it sent shockwaves through Brookfield. The revelations included not just the scandalous video but also details of Daniel's unethical practices and the numerous complaints that had been filed against him over the years. The article painted Daniel as a corrupt and deceitful figure, someone who had abused his power for personal gain. As the story gained traction, Daniel's reputation crumbled. He was forced to step down from his position as HOA president, and his public image was irreparably damaged. The fallout was swift. He faced severe backlash from the community, and his personal and professional life were left in ruins. The once charismatic leader was now seen as a pariah. While Jake's actions had brought about a sense of justice, they did little to heal the rift in his own life. His relationship with Ella had deteriorated beyond repair. Despite her repeated attempts to mend things, Jake found it increasingly difficult to reconcile with the woman who had betrayed him so profoundly. Ella's remorse was evident, but the pain she had caused was too deep to ignore. The arguments between Jake and Ella became a daily occurrence. They fought over everything, from their daughter's well-being to the logistics of their daily lives. Each confrontation was a reminder of the broken trust and the emotional scars that had been inflicted. Ella's pleas for forgiveness were met with Jake's cold silence and occasional outbursts of anger. One evening, as they sat in the living room, Jake broke the silence. "Ella, we need to talk about what comes next. We can't keep living like this. It's not fair to Lily, and it's not fair to either of us." Ella's face was streaked with tears. "I know. I'm trying so hard to make this work, but I don't know how. I don't know if it's even possible." Jake sighed deeply. "I don't think it is. I've tried to forgive you, but every time I look at you, I remember what you did. It's tearing me apart." The conversation was a turning point. Jake and Ella both knew that their marriage was beyond saving. The damage had been done, and no amount of effort could restore what had been lost. The decision was made. Jake filed for divorce. The process was long and painful, marked by legal battles and emotional strain. Both Jake and Ella were forced to confront the reality of their situation, and they had to find a way to navigate the complexities of their separation while maintaining a semblance of stability for Lily. The divorce proceedings were filled with arguments over property, custody, and financial matters. Each legal meeting was a reminder of the life they had once shared and the deep fractures that had emerged. In the midst of this turmoil, Jake found solace in focusing on his career and his daughter. He poured his energy into work, using it as a distraction from the personal upheaval he was experiencing. He also made a concerted effort to be present for Lily, ensuring that she had a stable and loving environment despite the changes in her family life. Ella, on the other hand, struggled with the reality of her actions. She had to face the consequences of her behavior and the impact it had on her family. The community's judgment, coupled with her personal guilt, was a heavy burden. She attempted to rebuild her life, seeking therapy and trying to reestablish her career, but the path to redemption was fraught with obstacles. The final stage of their divorce was a quiet affair. Jake and Ella reached an agreement on the division of assets and the custody arrangement for Lily. The formalities were completed with minimal confrontation, reflecting the reality that their relationship had been reduced to a series of legal transactions rather than a personal connection. As Jake and Ella went their separate ways, they both faced the challenge of moving forward. Jake's sense of vengeance had brought a measure of justice, but it had not healed the wounds within his own heart. The public exposure of Daniel's misconduct had restored a sense of order to the community, but it had come at a personal cost. In the end, Jake and Ella's story was a painful reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the often unpredictable consequences of our actions. Their marriage, once the cornerstone of their lives, had crumbled under the weight of betrayal and anger. The journey towards healing and forgiveness was ongoing, and the future remained uncertain. As Jake watched Lily play in the park one sunny afternoon, he found a sense of peace in the simple joys of fatherhood. Despite the pain of the past, he was determined to provide a loving and stable environment for his daughter. Ella, too, continued her journey of self-discovery and atonement, striving to rebuild her life and find a sense of purpose beyond the mistakes of the past. Their lives had diverged, but the lessons learned from their experiences remained with them. The path to redemption was long and arduous, but both Jake and Ella were committed to finding their own ways forward, guided by the hope of a brighter future and the enduring love they had for their daughter.